Hi, Bill Crystal here. Welcome back to Conversations. I'm very pleased to be joined again today by my friend James Carville, who's going out of his way to join us here on October 1st. I believe he's in Rome right now, and despite the time difference, is here to discuss the state of our politics. So I hate to detract from your vacation for an hour to get onto a more depressing topic, but whatever. We can maybe you'll cheer us all up, James. I don't know.
Uh, well, you can't get away from it. Okay, I mean, you're still on your computer, to sit in the lobby at a hotel with people. You can't escape this. There's no such thing. So it doesn't do any good. So
Well, that's a I don't know if that's reassuring or the opposite, but that's interesting to hear. Well, let's begin. It's October 1st. Yesterday, we'll talk about the Republican Party, Democratic Party, how things look for 26, 28. But I thought I'd just get your quick reaction as a former Marine to the president's and Pete Hegseth's, President Trump's and Pete Hegseth's speeches yesterday at Quantico. Did you watch any of it? What you make of that?
but I obviously didn't watch the whole thing. I mean, I don't have a total tolerance for pain. I was actually more aghast at what Hezbollah said. And I'll tell you what was really. So everybody goes through. You're right. I was a Marine 60 years ago. I mean, whatever. Your son. Okay. Everybody thinks, well, I had it hard. And we were, by the way, my wife and I at Paris Island in 2022, for behind the curtain tour of. I got news for you. They're much better trained than we were. Okay. And so you're going out and you're telling your team, this is Team United States. These are our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, space. And you said, you're no good. You're fat, you're soft. And that's insane. I mean, the Secretary of Defense is telling our own people that they're no good and telling the generals they're all fat and lazy. So what I'll give you a little experiment. Just pick a naval base, pick a Marine Corps base, pick an Army post or whatever, and look at the Wikipedia entry of the commanding general or the commanding admiral. Okay, I got news for you, Pete. Man, these people have it's just ridiculous that you tell your own people that you're no good. It was insane.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole idea of doing it was insane, but you would think somebody get up and say, "Look, we're really good, but we can be better if we do the following three things." I just think it was, and in Trump's 57-minute grievance ramble, I I don't. Was it any worse than what you saw at the UN? I don't know. I can't grade it. I
Yeah,
can't.
and Trump, I think the only thing that alarming is to actually say to the military, one of your main jobs is going to be dealing with the enemy within, the enemy here at home. It's stuff he's said before, but to say it directly to these general and flag officers is pretty astonishing. I think, they do not agree with that. But one thing that
No.
worries me the most is after 3 years of Hegseth supervising and monkeying with promotion boards and firing and hiring people, I don't know. Will we have a senior officer corps that's as reliable, I would say, as the current one seems to be? I mean, that's something to really think about, you know. He's
Absolutely. And look, it's almost 20% of the armed forces right now are females. But I got to tell you, aircraft carrier, the person that's landing the planes, or the person that is very possibly a female on all across the whole spectrum of stuff. And then he says anybody that's black, oh, come on, man. I mean, the one thing that the military tries to stress is unit cohesion. That's just part of their ethos. It's always been part of ethos. Say if the Secretary of Defense said, if somebody is not a white male, they're a suspect.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. I mean, I actually feel sorry for the leadership that has to, go back to wherever they were and training troops and training officers and training people. I can't imagine how a message like this would set in for somebody. I can't think it'd be anything other than utterly depressing. I mean, they don't like America. That's what I really believe. They don't like the people that live in this country. They don't like our customs. They don't like our laws. They don't like the traditions. They don't like the Constitution. They don't like it's amazing that we've come to a place, but I genuinely believe that most of the people in the Trump administration do not like the United States. They don't pull for us. I really believe that.
No, that's really well said and
I
powerful,
believe
and
it. Yeah,
it's a better summary of what we saw than a lot of the other stuff, that's including stuff that I've been writing and saying. It's very That's very perceptive. I mean, it is remarkable. Hex has said diversity is whole diversity stuff is a myth. We're for unity. Has there ever been a more divisive Secretary of Defense, and setting one part of the force against another individual? You say individuals against each other, undermining the authority of those now in command, who incidentally have served in times of war. I mean, the people, if you're now in the General or Flag Officer Corps, you've been in what, 30 years probably? So you were a junior officer probably, or a middle level officer in Iraq or Afghanistan. These people have seen a lot of tough combat, the people he's speaking down to, you know?
yes. But just look up. Not only tough combat, but almost to a person. They're all highly decorated. They're all highly educated, like anybody else. They can have a herd mentality. They can be wrong about things. There's nothing. One of the things that anybody, when people say, "I'm just going to do what the general say I should do," no, 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 that's not a good idea.
Right.
Okay, stop right there. I'm going to listen to what the general say I should do. Fine, but much better. But the current message is you don't know anything, and I'm a drunk and I've knocked people up and I've done this, so pay attention. It again, the only theory that explains everything is they don't like the United States. They really don't like anything about the country. And they particularly don't like, in their mind, what the country has become.
Right.
All right. They might like the 1957 United States.
Yeah. Or some
Yeah.
cartoon version of it that they're thinking back to,
Right.
right? But
Right.
yeah. Okay, so that's actually very interesting, I've got to say, and thought provoking. But let's begin with the Republic. Let's talk about politics, and I guess begin with the Trump administration and the Republican Party and the MAGA movement. They're in charge. They control everything for now. Are they strong? Are they weak?
Well,
What part of each of those should one focus on?
well, I mean, let's start with the Republican Party and the Democratic Party,
Okay.
for my vantage point. First of all, in the sense of a political party, there's no such thing as the Republican Party. It's a personality cult. They don't care what John Thune or Mike Johnson thinks about them, but they don't even bring them in.
Yeah.
Okay, they literally don't even include them in a conversation. And it's utterly clear that they're in a personality code. The Democratic Party is cumbersome because it's a coalition, and it's a coalition that has not found its way yet. It's a coalition in search of itself. And the combination of that is going to lead to some pretty convoluted things, which we're seeing now. And I think the Democrats I wrote earlier this year should right now be only unified in opposition to the big, bad, beautiful bill and Trumpism in general. And people will say, well, James, you're just telling us what you're against. You're not telling you what you're for. Actually, you're correct. But until we flush out in 2028 primaries, because I don't think Democrats can know who they are until Democratic primary voters weigh in and pick and decide who we are. It's not up to me to say what the Democratic Party should be. It's for 8 people to run for president and then have Democratic primary voters pick one, and then that's what the party becomes.
Eight,
We can't
eight people
can't
seems like
accelerate the process.
more like 18 people probably, or 28
Yeah,
people to start with.
what will we know? They'll start with 18
Yeah.
by the middle of December. It'll be down to 9 by
Right.
January the 2nd. But it'll all be decided based on polling, fundraising, support, crowds, all the amorphous stuff that goes in. But they got to pick their direction. The party has to picked different constituencies have got to say this is the direction we want to go in.
So do
Uh,
you basically, you seem to be saying, but correct me if I'm wrong, that the disunity, if you want to put it that way, the disarray in Democratic ranks, which is natural when you don't control the executive branch or any House of Congress, I think, isn't a huge problem for 26 for the midterm. It's a 2028 problem or challenge that a presidential nominee and the presidential primaries has to solve. But they can go through, they can have a good enough year in 2026 in their kind of current state, basically.
I don't think I disagree with Bill. I would call it 2028 opportunity
Okay.
because we haven't had. So my theory of politics is people get involved at a young age in politics. They kind of pick a side, not based on the great issues and debates of the day, but an inspiring figure. So maybe I saw Kennedy, maybe you saw Eisenhower or Reagan or Goldwater, and you said, I'm inspired by this. All right. We have not had an inspiring candidate since 2012. And so it's an opportunity that when everybody gets out there and competes and it gets flushed out and voters start deciding and start picking a side, that somebody will look strong and inspirational. We don't have that right now. And you can't force it. It can only come with a presidential nominee. And when you try to force it, it doesn't look good because it's impossible to do. And I hope everybody runs from every faction of the party. I was read in the Times, an academic, I got his name, talking about true populism is the future of the Democratic Party. And he talks about Bernard and he talks about Bernie Sanders. He never talks about Spanberger. He never talks about Cheryl. He never talks about Alyssa Slotkin or Ruben Gallego. And he never mentions the fact that Bernie ran for president, actually did not do that well. All right. The main thing that people need to understand is the most left wing person has never won a Democratic nomination since McGovern, and that was
Mm.
1972. People, everybody has a vested interest in saying, oh, you just wait. AOC is going to win the thing, I hope they run. I don't think they will do near as well as other people do, but they we have to have a decision by Democratic primary voters. It's the only way we can get out of this.
Now that's so interesting. So if it's what's your view on 2026? Is that about Trump? Or is that a
It's all about Trump. I can't imagine anything not being anything in particularly just every day he just keeps jacking the stakes up. Every day it's hard for me to imagine a voter that votes in 2026 that doesn't have Trump and what this is on their mind. Yes. And it, by the way, it generally is. I mean, it's all,
right?
particularly first year off elections, are about the incumbent president. I think we'll get some pretty good guidance in Virginia, and I think, yes, even in New Jersey also. Because I think at the end of the day, they're probably going to be voting more on Trump than they are with, you know, statewide issues. I that's just I could be wrong, but that's what I think.
Yeah, that's my. I mean, I'm here in Virginia. It's my sense. At least the marginal voters. Obviously, there's a ton of voters who care a lot about various policies here in Virginia, one way or the other, and they vote every time. But I got to think the sort of the additional voters, the marginal voters, are coming out. Maybe in some cases for Trump, but I think here in Virginia more against him. But we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see.
Um, Are you pretty optimistic about 2026? And what dynamics do you expect? What are we now, 14 months from that? I mean, what do you think the key dynamics are? We got a government shutdown that just began. There's a bunch of issues. There's a bunch of other things. I mean,
Well, uh, so let's talk about the government shutdown. Right. I do think that the Democrats have the better hand.
hmm,
I know because I used to play bridge, and you can have the better hand, which has happened to me a lot, and I've lost.
right.
Okay, I didn't run trumps. I didn't count my losers, or I didn't finesse right. So all things being equal, I think it should probably come out ahead where this goes. But I don't know that. And I think there's so much left between now and, November of 2026. And at the speed that things are going, but economically, foreign policy, culturally, socially, anything else, there's there's a lot left before we get to November 2026. But I will say this: if the Democrats don't do well, it, it, the party may just totally fracture because people will say, well, if we can't win in this environment, what the hell can we do? The low image of the party is, I think, totally related to losing the election. And I see this analysis that the party's dead, it's got nothing to do. All right, first of all, in 2024, in Harris refused to say she would change anything from Biden. Of course, I'll go into what she's saying now. That she said we're not gonna change anything, and we were stuck with the cultural baggage of 2019 and 2020 pretty clearly and legitimately. We lost by 1 point, a point and a half, 1.7. We actually picked up a House seat or two. We actually won Senate seats in Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, which were all states that Trump was carrying at the time. That's not a party in collapse. It's a party with a disappointing election return. I'll concede that. But we were not wiped off the map in 2024, not like, like 1980 or 2008. Those were like monster years. And of course, they were followed by 82 in 2010, and we were followed by 1994. So yeah, I think that the idea that the whole party is in the doldrums and is nowhere is really not, baby. You wouldn't pick up a House seat if you were collapsing. I think maybe we picked up two. I don't remember. But it was, and, you know, we lost Pennsylvania in the Senate, but barely. And it's just not, that's not evidence of collapse. I'm sorry.
No, that certainly sounds right to me. Um, any issues you think particularly potent over the next, I mean, 14 months is a long time, but do you agree with the conventional view that healthcare, you articulated this way back in 92, the economy and healthcare kind of number one and number two, the cultural stuff, how powerful is that? I mean, or other things, just the authoritarianism, ICE. I mean, what's your sort of, where are you on the which issues should the Democrats stress, or do they not even not even have to resolve that?
I always think economic issues. I don't think there's much. I think to most people, healthcare is an economic issue. Okay, they don't have a 401k and blood workup and look at them as something different. It's sort of mesh. And I think a human being has too many economic interactions in a day, uh, that it's always going to be paramount in people's minds. Some of the stuff that the Democrats came out for in the early part of this decade, at the end of the last decade, were just insane. I just want to get someone that, like, who advised Harris when she was running for president in 2019. I mean, some of the stuff is so, and you say they're just making this up. And then you go look into it. No, they're actually not making it up. Okay. People were talking about transition surgery for prisoners. All right. And hopefully, and I don't think that's where the Democratic primary vote is, but we got to settle this in 2026. I mean, 2028, particularly. All this has to be settled and has to be adjudicated by Democratic primary voters. And I'm very confident that there'll be a wise adjudication here. But we can't, it's gotten out. Too many people followed this nonsense, in my view, and it's hurt, it's caused real damage to the party brand. But remember, in spite of that, in spite of an unpopular incumbent, in spite of a 68% wrong track number, we only got to come back a point and a half, or 1.7, I guess, it want to be more accurate about it. If we get someone, and I think we will, that just talks in inspiring, normal, uplifting messaging, I think we'll be fine.
And the Republican Party, you said, isn't a real party. It's a
No.
cult of personality for Trump. But so let's talk about, but that is on the other side. And Trump has some strengths politically and some weaknesses. And MAGA, you stressed this over a year and a half ago, I think, in our conversation. People didn't pick up on it enough, in my opinion. The MAGA was weaker than Trump. But talk a little bit about that. I mean, is Trump himself a little weaker than he was? Does he have some magic ability to pull rabbits out of a hat? What about the whole administration, the corruption? What strikes you about it?
There was a time seeing a poll, which I think is pretty good. I mean, it's confirming he's about where he was at this point in his first term. And there are more people that don't like him than like him. But I don't, my own view is MAGA is stronger than Trump. If he were to exit American politics, I'm not wishing bad health on anybody for whatever reason. The whole fight in 2028 would be who's the most MAGA, and that's going to be the entire thing. So I don't. I think he's just changed Republican politics for the foreseeable future. That's what I really believe. And the one thing he does do is he brings about the vote, and we'll see if he can bring about in 2026, or we'll see if he brings about in Virginia. But generally, he doesn't do that very well. I mean, remember 2022 was a really disappointing year for the Republicans. I mean, really disappointing. I mean, historically, everything. So there's a lot of resistance to this in the country, and you saw it in 2022 pretty clearly, which by all standards should have been a blowout.
And when you say MAGA is stronger than Trump, I think yeah, you're saying it's sort of it will outlast Trump, where they'll fight to be the heir to Trump in MAGA world.
Absolutely.
Do you think
Absolutely.
that the people though in MAGA and the administration aren't they a little bit of a drag on Trump to some degree, or do you think people, or is Trump so dominant no one even cares about Vance or the cabinet secretaries or Hegseth or anyone else?
So you look at the cabinet. I mean, how does a normal person have any confidence in this? But I don't think they care. I really don't. I don't think it matters who Brooke Rollins is at all.
Right.
Brooke Rollins, but I'm just I mean, you have Tom Homan literally taking a $50,000 brown bag of cash. I mean, that's like 1952 Louisiana stuff. I mean, uh, Trump's sophisticated. They made a $55 billion deal with Jared, and they put him on with the Saudis. Jared's not interested in the $50,000 in a brown paper bag. I mean, his horizons are much more advanced than that, to say the least. And so is Trump. The Pfizer had to give him a discount on Trump RX prescriptions or something. I swear I read that. I hope I didn't misread it.
Yeah.
But it sounds true.
I mean, are you surprised? I guess we've been through politics quite a while, and corruption scandals explode, and sometimes they fade away, and sometimes they bring people down, and they have to be dealt with. I feel I don't know. The Trump administration just and Trump personally and the family seem. It just seems not to be an issue. It's kind of astonishing. I mean, it's at a scale so far beyond anything any of us have ever seen or dreamed of, I think.
It's almost funny because we all remember the great Neil Bush SNL scandal.
I forgot. Yeah, well,
Anybody
now
want
I
to
hadn't, but now that you mention
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
yes,
but
it comes
I
back.
mean, or Johnny Chung raising money in the White, or whatever. I, I mean, the Mina airport. I mean, the
Yeah.
stuff that we would like explode into were almost laughable. Okay, this is like, I mean, this just goes to show you, if you steal $100, you in trouble. If you steal $100 billion, no one can digest it. And I think we have, I do think that when this is unearthed, and historians write about this period, the level of corruption is, everything is going to be known as the age of this, the age of that. I think this period, the mid 2020s, is going to be known for its corruption more than anything else in ways that we can. I mean, the Teapot Dome scandal, I looked it up. It was about some oil leases in Wisconsin or the
Right.
credit mobiler. Yeah, I mean, this is all so petty. Whitewater. Oh, God. Okay. It's like a $50,000 land deal. I don't think we can comprehend the level and the depth of the corruption that's happening. And not the normal corruption of the lobbyists running Washington and the special interests. I mean, this is just out and out two-hand brown paper bag cash stealing. So far they're getting away with it.
Do you agree there that sort of a kind of economic populist issue, obviously how you define that's a big question, but a kind of economic populist, I don't know, attitude, let's put it that way, on the part of the Democrats would be important, that they can't just be the party that's defending the current elite institutions, the old elite institutions against the new Trump MAGA elite institutions or non-institutions.
I mean, the whole Democratic message, I think the winning message is going to be that everybody has lapsed in to doing what they can for the few, and yeah, we've forgotten the the common person should have a seat and a view at the table, and that the system is stacked against you. And I think people will believe that. And I think the more successful Democratic candidates will talk about there's a power imbalance in this country where the people that have the most power continue to accumulate the most power, and the people that have the least power continue to lose power. And I can't tell you that in 4 years I can reverse the whole thing, but I can certainly change the trajectory. And every day we make decisions, and these decisions are made not for the people who use drugs, but are made by the people who sell drugs. The decisions we make are not by the people who borrow money, it's the people who lend money. The decisions we make, you can just go through the whole thing. And what I'd like to do is anybody would admit that the power imbalance has gotten severely skewered, and in my opinion, the wrong way. And I think there are things that we can do to bring us back more to mainstream. I mean, you can talk that way. You can talk about the mainstream, or you can talk about it without sounding like you're for, income, uh, for social. For you can just talk about we've gotten out of kilter. We need to balance it, and I
You
think people
get,
are very receptive to that.
and do you think that message is more easily delivered by a governor as opposed to a senator or an outsider, or does it not matter? It just depends on the,
I don't think it matters.
yeah.
I really don't. I don't think that somebody's going to want us know, well, what did you do as governor of Illinois or governor of Kentucky or Michigan or Maryland or Pennsylvania, wherever you ran? Okay. I mean, they'll say, well, we dropped crime down by 24.2% and we created jobs. And that's fine. That's not what's going to decide this. Okay. That's just not at the end. I, I, I think most of them have admirable records and they can talk about them.
I'm so glad to hear you say that because I've spent years, I feel like, arguing with people about this. I think in my generation, yours too, I mean, as we came up, Reagan wins, he's former governor of California. Clinton wins, governor of Arkansas. Bush wins, governor of Texas. And it became this kind of mythology that governors are great candidates. And I mean, you and I were involved in, or around, at least for those campaigns. I mean, none of them won because he was a governor. Reagan won because he was the leader of a popular conservative movement. Clinton won because he was an extremely talented
It's our
politician. You
talented.
have to have the credential, having run something maybe, or having been elected to something certainly. And Bush won because he was Bush. I mean, but it's ridiculous. People do have this kind of obsession with the governors that I think is a little overdone, honestly.
I think it's totally overdone. But remember, Reagan gave a speech at the 64 Republican convention. He was going to run in 68. He ran in 76.
Right.
I mean, he was a prototype of what a ambitious politician should be. And he was governor of California, but I don't think he he won because of his record as governor of California. I think he won because he had a message of change, and there was a sense that he was a different kind of, he was a great communicator.
Yeah.
I think you can take and I don't think, Clinton won on the Arkansas record.
I mean, in the Bush White House thought that would be a big vulnerability for Clinton, and we wasted God knows how many millions of dollars and hours of the president's time attacking the Clinton Arkansas record, which, so far as I could tell,
Failed governor of
had
a
no
small,
effect on anything.
no, the failed governor of a small state.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good line.
I remember that God damn, okay, come on. I know the guy, David Marinus wrote a story about Clinton raised taxes 125 times, and Betsy Wright said, "Oh no, it's actually 128."
Right.
Now they would call an increase in the parking fee at Oak Lawn Racetrack a taxi. Okay, but all of that we thought too. Oh my God. Uh, People vote more on a direction and a feeling than they do on a specific policy proposal. We had a 93-page economic plan that I didn't read a sentence of, but it's called putting people first. Okay, that's
That was good.
yeah,
I remember the big meetings there in Little Rock where the people were flying in,
yeah.
economists from all over the country.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, very impressive.
They
You,
love the Democrats love the Clintons especially, but are always enamored with expertise. That there is a solution. You have a problem, okay, you get really smart people, and sometimes they're actually right. Okay, but
right.
they in the whole, I was talking to somebody, the whole essence of Clintonism, I know because I've listened to the conversation and everything, is they have almost childlike belief that training and education are the answers to all of our problems. That answer to social dysfunction, economic stagnation, family breakup, crime, everything. If you cut a Clintonite open, if we just did job training and we did education better and we had if we taught people how to read better earlier, and that's really what's at the core of it. And it's actually not a bad philosophy of life. All right, it really isn't. And they also believe fervently that the economy wanted predictability above everything else. That if you said, look, these are the rules, this is the tax rate, this is what you have to do, that businesses would prefer that than not knowing, than having a favorable policy today in their minds, but not knowing what it'll be tomorrow. I think both of those things are not a bad starting place.
That's interesting. I mean, Clinton was young. People forget how, I mean, certainly we in the Bush White House could see the age difference. I think some of us thought it might help Bush, experience, gravitas. It didn't help, I don't think. And then, of course, W was pretty young, and then Obama was younger. I think it all got distorted a little bit with Biden versus Trump, and then uh, twice, I guess, right? And then Harris, somewhat younger, but running really as Biden's VP. Do you sort of have the view that the time to get down to a younger generation, or does it? I mean, obviously it's going to be someone younger than
I,
Biden and
I think
Trump, but I mean, how important is that, or how could it be someone who's older as long as they have, a vision for the future and all that stuff?
I think this, all things being almost equal, I think the party will go with someone younger, but it has to be in range. And I do think that the image of the Democratic Party in people's mind, this I know, is that it's an urban and old party.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
agree.
why I want to have presidential nominating thing, because we have a lot of people. And sometimes these people call me and ask, say something. my advice, I want all of you to run. Just get up there. You do more service by running and showing people that you can string a sentence together, that you know something about the United States beyond coastal cities, and you have some degree of energy and spunk and movement about you. But right now, that's what people think about us. And I know that from 1,000 people calling me, looking at 1,000 focus groups. When you mention the Democrats, people say, well, I don't know, they're for the cities and the old.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, that's the hangover from the previous election, or in this case, the previous administration.
Hey,
I don't know
and
how long does it last? You think I feel like maybe it goes away by the time you get through 26,
when
but
you
I don't
win
know.
when you win, it goes away. There's nothing. It sounds so absurd to say this, but people have to be reminded. In politics, winning is everything. If you lose, your own people don't like you. It doesn't do any good. And if they have if the Democrats have a good 2026, the image of the party will pop up. People, all of the bad polling is a result of Democrats do not like their party
Right.
because they lost. Why would I like them? And the way that you cure that is, well, you win.
And what does winning in 26 look like? I mean, just practically
I think it's 20, it's got to be more than 20 seats.
in the House. Yeah.
Yes. And I think the Senate, if we stay on the same trajectory, I think the Senate is more of a possibility than most other people. And I base that obviously North Carolina should be, that's one probable pickup. I actually think Maine probably is. I think Collins is probably, she's been pretty successful. Okay, my hat's off to it in one sense, but I think that's kind of run out. The place I'm really more bullish on is Iowa,
Hmm.
and they've really gotten hurt by. I mean, the Trump policies have hit Iowa particularly hard, particularly tariffs and particularly the immigration stuff. And soybeans are just, I mean, people forget how bad a shape a lot of the agricultural sectors in. Now, Trump is talking about he's going to give the farmers who are losing money, but Indiana, if you think about a farm state, it's not just farmers. It's people that supply them. It's the seed store. It's the tractor store. It's the mechanic. It's the dry cleaner. It's the anything that you can think of. The insurance, crop insurance, and it's so the in these agricultural states in ways that a lot of people can't understand. It's all intertwined, and American agriculture is in trouble. And prices are not great. Um, so I expect, and the place that I think if and I am a betting person. If I would get, it would take good odds, but I would bet on Mississippi.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you look at so in Biden was president in 2023. It was a governor's race. The Democrat came within 2 points.
Right.
That was with a president in 2023 probably had a white approval of 16. I don't know. Okay, I'm just pulling something out. The climate is going to be better. Remember, Mississippi is by far the blackest state. It's 38.5 population. Now they can't get the vote out to much above 31 share. But if they can do that, they're within striking distance. I mean, Mike Espy got like 46 and a half.
Yeah.
And Cindy Hyde Smith is a particularly weak incumbent. So obviously Texas is always, don't forget Alaska. Don't forget Alaska. And if you have a big year, Sherwood ran. He ran so far ahead of Harris, it wasn't even funny. I mean, he lost, but
Right.
his top line was significantly better. I mean, he really overperform. So I would not, I would certainly say some of these things are a stretch. But if it's a good year, and you and I have been through a lot of good or bad years, depending on the way you look at it, and a lot of stuff happens in big years. Don't kid yourself.
Yeah, the way people afterwards write these learned treatises about the wave and how it was coming for 18 months, but not, actually, in my experience, people do not see it coming. And people in Virginia in 2006, state I live in, were telling George Allen was safe. I mean, he was running against Jim Webb, a kind of flaky, ex-Reagan administration guy who was the Democratic nominee. Allen, a very popular ex-governor, incumbent senator, likely presidential candidate in '08. He made one stupid mistake on the campaign trail, maybe more than one, a couple little.
So the tracker in that is a real hero. His name was C.C. Siderath. He was like the first
Right.
of sort of trackers. They called it, macaque, I think, was like a,
Yeah, and Alan called him that, maybe
yeah,
not even realizing it seemed like it was insulting.
right. I'll never forget that story. I just, yeah, trackers are big in the lower campaigns.
But I mean, but I remember people here in Virginia saying, "Oh, there's no chance he'll lose," and you get a wave, all kinds of stuff starts happening. And these states, which everyone's written off, Democrats won in these states not that long ago, right? I mean, Iowa had a Democratic governor. It's not like people never voted for a Democrat in most of these states, so people kind of over.
They're almost, yeah, you can't guarantee anything. Politicians, Democrats almost guaranteed to win the governorship in Iowa.
Yeah.
I would say
So the
that
question is, federal offices are tougher, right, in the
they're
current
tougher.
polarized
At
environment.
national they're tougher. You know, that's how look at Kentucky. Republicans, look at Vermont.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get some quirks, but they generally at the state level, not But if the year is as big as it might be, we don't know. Then a lot of stuff is going to happen. A
And
lot.
when do you think we start to see that? I mean, we're seeing Democrats ahead by a few points in the generic, which is okay, I think, for
Right.
Democrats. But when do you, in your experience, when does the stuff start to really hit, or is it just hard to predict?
Well, first of all, we know it's not going to end up 47-44. Okay. The first rule of politics, it sounds so elementary, it's almost condescending. On election day, it has to add up to 100.
Yeah,
It can't not. And the contribution of, the white, the black combined, his, ethnic, the gender, education, it all has to add up to 100. That's the first rule of politics. So if you say yourself, we go into it's Labor Day of 2026, and the average of the generic, how important it is, people can argue, but it's something, and it's 48-44. That would tell me that now, important to know, the Democrats have to win by a certain percentage over 50, which is gerrymandering. But if you're up 48-44 on Labor Day, you're going to have a monster year because you're probably going to,
interesting.
yeah, yes. And the most important number to pay attention to is the incumbent party number. Because if you're Labor Day of 2026 and you're not voting for a party with all the power, you're probably not going to change your mind. You may not vote, but I don't think you're going to. I think if you take the average of the better post Labor Day 2026 polls, whatever the Republicans are getting, they're going to get that and not much more.
Oh,
It
that's
can't,
interesting.
but you can't, but it's always going to, it never adds up to 100. It
Yeah,
has
yeah,
to,
yeah.
it can't not add up to 100 on election day.
No, but that's good guidance to look at the Republican number on Labor Day. So we'll
I,
we'll
it's
we'll
more
we'll do that.
determined, more
Yeah,
determined. And I don't know in some of these races, like, let's just take Virginia. By any stretch of imagination, Sears is the incumbent. I mean,
right.
there's a Republican governor, there's a Republican president, and
She's
you
the
know,
lieutenant governor, so yeah, right,
she's the
literally.
lieutenant
Yeah,
governor. If you ain't voting for her yet, I don't think you're going to get there between now and election day. I now in it's a little bit more difficult in New Jersey because obviously I saw this bill and I actually when I thought about it, it's not surprising, but I never thought about it. New Jersey has never elected a party to a third term in 100 years. So that's probably going to be an indication. So clearly the Democrats run the state. Are they the incumbent or is Trump the incumbent? That's a question that's going to get answered here in a little bit more than a month, actually.
Yeah, it's amazing how soon. Yeah, and Cheryl's running against a good Republican candidate, I would say. Probably, a little. I
Yes.
mean,
Well,
Trump's
he's seasoned. He's run before. She's she had run statewide.
right.
They, they they got her caught up in a thing. I'm pretty sure she'll be able to extricate herself from this pretty effectively. But Citarelli is very aggressive, and Democrats had a pretty contentious primary, and not everybody left that totally
Right.
happy. So it's going to be instructive.
Yeah, that's another thing for.
The fashionable thing that I hear from all of our Democratic friends is, yeah, James, Virginia's fine, but I don't know about New Jersey. I'm really worried. I, actually, I'm not yet, but I might get there. But I just think Trump is just too dominant a figure
Yeah,
that's not going to be first and foremost on people's minds.
but it will be a test, as you say, because they could want to vote against the incumbent Democrats, and that would they have been
But
in
I
for.
must tell you, there's Democratic angst about New Jersey, but it doesn't
Yeah,
take much to get Democratic angst is the easiest thing to get. Oh
yeah,
God, give
yeah.
me
Even
that.
I've seen it too. A couple of final questions. I
All right.
you can duck this one if you want, but I mean, any particular people you would watch for in either party for 28? I'm just, strike you as just candidate without committing, obviously, right now, or without even your own preferences. Just
All right.
whose candidate skills strike you, whose absence of candidate skills maybe strike you.
If I were Republican, it was any different time, I would say somebody like Brian Kemp, who's just kind of run over everything, and it's a kind of a swing state, and he's kind of a, but Brian Kemp has so it's hard to know in the Congress because they don't have they don't have an opinion, so you have no idea. They could be the most talented person in the
Right.
world in the Senate, but it doesn't matter.
On the Republican side,
I
yeah.
will say this, and every time I name names, I get into trouble. I have never seen, and I mean this from as sincerely as I can say it, more talent in one party at the kind of right at the potential presidential level than exists in today's Democratic Party. I
Hmm.
think when these guys get out there and people see them, their reaction is going to be, shit, I didn't know these guys were out there. I didn't realize this because they haven't seen a Democratic presidential nominee form a sentence in, you know, a long time. All right, be articulate, but they're never, and I think they're going to see five or six people that they're not. Well, God, that guy's got something to say, and as you know, in politics, if if you're running against other talented people, it only makes you more talented. It will drive me nuts. We never had a contested process in 2024. Yes, we could have done it late. And now you have Harris and Pete Buttigieg saying, well, somebody should have talked Biden out of running. Well, thank you, you son of a bitch. Where were you?
I
Like,
believe you and I did our best on
we
that,
did
and
our
I
best.
don't think you
We
were.
had
I don't think you
shown
got a lot of thank you calls from even
right.
privately from people like Vice
Right. We
President
were we
Harris.
were trying to start something, and I'll never forget. I did shows. I was in Mississippi, and God, we got to try something else here. And now they're all coming in saying, "Well, it wasn't up to me to say anything." Well, then who was it?
Yeah,
I just I don't have I've never been pro or anti Buttigieg that much. I mean, I think he's smart. I don't, but that just totally. That what did surprise me, and I think it surprised you, is Harris's book has done as well as it has.
I haven't looked. Is that right? I
Oh,
haven't.
that
Yeah.
story. Mike Allen texted me. I mean, and I know something about publishing. She sold like 350,000 books.
Wow.
I am, I mean, hats off, gracious. I,
Yeah.
I didn't see that coming. If you'd have asked me, I'd have thought the book would be a bust.
Yeah. It's funny how these things happen. doesn't always translate into
Right.
votes, I suppose,
But
though,
it
right?
did
So
mean that there were people that passively want to hear a story, I guess. But I was surprised, I will
I
tell
feel
you.
like there's a lot of sense that she was treated badly, which I don't disagree with, incidentally, by the Biden camp and
I
stuff.
don't mind. Okay, okay, so you're in politics. You're the district attorney of San Francisco. You're the attorney general of California. You're the United States senator. You're the vice president of the United States. You get an uncontested nomination.
Yeah,
I don't
fair
feel
enough, fair
sorry for
enough.
you. I don't feel
Okay.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, well, you're tougher minded than some of those 350,000 people, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't despise.
Anything
I don't. There are things I feel about Vice President Harris. Pity is not one.
yeah. Republican side, anything strikes you? I mean, I worked for a vice president. What do you think of
JD Vance, JD Vance, JD Vance. He's consolidating everything.
yeah,
I just don't see. I just don't see. He's ingratiated himself to all of these, you know, internal groups. Uh, he's a person of some. It's not my cup of tea, but he's obviously a person of considerable ambition and talent, and he's plotting his course. I don't see anybody that's going to be able to, unless Trump were to blow up at him or something like that would happen. I don't know, but I don't see that. It's really hard to see somebody him not being a nominee in 2028. It would take a lot.
interesting. Interesting. Final question. I mean, you're American, even more than you're a Democrat and a patriot. I mean, what do you think? I mean, how bad shape are we in? If I could just honestly ask you, as in terms of the country as a whole, and even if things go decently politically, the recovery from this, the situation we're now in, and will be in for the next 3 years to some degree. How alarmed are you? How hopeful? I mean,
You know, Bill, and I think, oh, you just being a Pollyanna, James. I actually think, I think the talent level of the people that'll be running in 2028, and we don't have our alliances a shot. I think the real danger the United States has is the rest of the world is starting to figure out how to live without us. They just
yeah,
figure, well, Western Europe, we can't live without the United States. These trading blocks, we can't, if we don't have, open sea lanes with the United States, and or we don't have the dollar, we're not pegged to their bond market. And my great fear is the world just doesn't work around. So we just can't rely on you anymore. And people or creative people will think of something else. I don't think I think we can get some of this back by 2028, but the the idea that we were, and my great fear is the rest of the world is going to figure out, well, they're not really the indispensable nation.
right.
We're Germans. We can have our own tanks, and we're Swedes. We actually have as good airplanes as they do. The Japanese are like, shit, we've tried to be your friend for forever. And what do we get? And so that's my great fear. But the Australians, okay, well, we'll, we'll trade with China. I mean, at some point, people do a workaround, and that's my
Right.
great fear.
Yeah, that's
I,
so interesting. And
I don't think people want to do that.
no, they're bending over backwards not to do it. I would say they've had
Right.
plenty of
Yeah.
excuses to do it, and they're kind of trying not to. But 3 more years of
And they're
this, you do
trying to
worry.
flatter
Yeah,
him, and they're trying to bring him gifts,
right.
but that my great fear is that everybody says, shit, they're too much trouble. We'll figure something else out. And they might.
And the trouble with that is, it's history suggests that that's not stable when they try to do that,
Oh.
right? I mean, this is the trouble. If they could figure it out, people could say, okay, fine, we'll be less important than we were for the last 100 years.
Here's an
But
example before we go. I'm in Western Europe. Of course, it was in Prague. And to hear people talk about what it was like, we were like adults then, living under communism and what the difference it made. It was pretty remarkable. And, uh, you know, the guy started, it was a guy, but people rail about the EU and the regulations and this. You know what, man? You know what's expensive? European land wars. We haven't had one.
Yeah,
Okay? It might be cumbersome. It might have too many regulations, but is you know what's really expensive? European land wars. But uh, in that there, certainly we can be more optimistic about that. Uh, we have a lot of allies in Southeast Asia. I just hope we don't lose them all. I mean, South Korea is a shit major country. Japan, Australia, Thailand, Vietnam,
totally.
New Zealand. I mean, I like our team better than their team, but we not get them in the huddle.
And at home, I feel like I don't know. I'm slightly weirdly optimistic about young people, but I don't know why exactly. But except I know,
I'm kind of where you are, and I don't know if I have good reason for it. But yeah, I am kind of where you are. That, but I hope I'm right. I hope you and I are right.
yeah. Well, we our generation produced Trump, so we don't have much to look down on them. I love it when people our age start dumping on all the young people. Like it's really
You
worked out great here
ever
with our.
listen to Scott Galloway TED Talk on young people?
I haven't.
It's life altering. I always kind of thought he was a little bit of a kind of know-it-all. I mean, I didn't dislike him, I didn't have much of an opinion. He did a talk on how our generation has just shafted the younger generation. You know what? He's got a point. I mean,
I'll have
there's
to look.
real intergenerational theft in this country. I mean, it, it, I think that young people, and it's not just the kind of Mandani young people or the young people that go to Amherst or, Swarthmore. I mean, I think young people are starting to see we're getting the short end of the stick. We can't buy a house. We can't afford college anymore. Any commodity that a young person wants, we've pretty successfully priced them out of the market. And that
Yeah, hopefully
housing,
they.
education, and health, being at the center of their lives. When we were 28, you and I, we never worried that we wouldn't own a house one day. All right, no, neither did neither did other people. Now, if you talk to a 28-year-old, they say, "I'll never have a house. How am I going to pay for that? I'm going to pay the taxes. I'm going to pay the interest rates. I'm going to pay the mortgage." I mean, I just don't see it happening to me. I don't see myself being able to send a kid to a good school. I can't see it. I, Hard to argue with them.
And I guess that kind of frustration makes them susceptible to demagogues, but also hopefully responsive to,
Hopefully,
forward-looking leaders, right? I mean, this is where we've been
hopefully.
lucky in the past with Kennedy and Reagan. I wasn't that young, but still, and Clinton, and I don't know. That's
Maybe,
it,
maybe. Look, but I'm again thinking about President Bush 41. You didn't get much credit for it, but let me tell you, man, I was in, you know, Germany and Czechoslovakia and Hungary and Austria, and made a lot of difference.
yeah,
I mean, and you hear people talk about it and what it was like. And what was kind of interesting, it's not a totally negative thing. Well, we did, to be fair, we had 650 square feet. We had one bathroom on the floor, but we always had something to eat. We were never cold in the winter, but this is obviously much better. And that all happened.
it
So,
did. And especially as you say, the European War. I mean, the first half of the 20th century, we do not. The idea that Hex that's nostalgic for the good old days of when it was called the Department of War, and we stayed out of stuff in Europe, and we had two unbelievably horrible and tragic world wars in Europe, and incidentally also in Asia. So it's like across the board we managed. That was really great when things were the Department of War. That first half of the 20th century was just really wonderful for the world. And we got dragged into those wars incidentally and lost hundreds of thousands of people. So
so my high point of the trip, I have to tell you, Shad, when I was in Vienna, I went to the Museum of Military History and actually saw the car that Franz Ferdinand was that
oh,
basically blew the whole world up. The car is actually, I saw it.
that's
I touched it.
yeah, congratulations, right? I hope it's not relevant. I hope it remains a relic of the past, not not a harbinger of the future.
You know what's is funny? They don't shine it up anything. It looks like they just drove it from Sarajevo to Vienna and put it on display. The tires are still kind of muddy.
Well, maybe they didn't. James, I'll let you get back to what you're doing over there. Thanks
Hey,
so much. This has been really interesting on so many levels. So thanks a
thank you,
lot
man.
for
You
joining me
always
again.
enjoy it, Bill. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us on Conversations. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more like it, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Your interest in this program means a lot to me. I appreciate it.